welcome back here. Sorry for the delay, amigos. You were just like dealing with a couple of different things, but I come to you all with exciting news. It has been decreed that Supernova will have a sub, Dean.
That's right. After your extended bathroom break, which was an emergency and definitely was necessary, Supernova did have to have an emergency substitute unfortunately come in. Lynx is no longer in. Now we have Rovex stepping into his place. Rovex kind of took the role of the substitute for the team. Easy mid laner by trade, oftentimes was subbed into the support role more often than not as a different. In fact, they're run through UGP, which is where they are able to beat CLG Academy. He was the one that took a lot of that mantle towards the end. Now stepping into the bot lane position here, at least a little bit of disarray now thrown potentially into the side of Supernova.
Actually, no, Dean. Array used to play for Supernova, so that's a little bit wrong there, but that gets resolved. But all jokes aside, though, yeah, like you're mentioning, Rovex definitely has a very interesting champion pool. Like considering what we've seen so far out of him, like as a mid laner, he likes to play any sort of casters and things he can make the game just more fun, quote unquote, because we've seen him pull out from the Yuumi to the Gwen support to like even Bard, although he's one of his default picks in terms of more supportive stuff. But what's up?
You are missing the most important one, literally named after him, the Rovex Gambit, because he is a mid laner that played Yasuo for a very long time. He would run Yasuo bot lane with Senna, and they would have him farm in the bottom side as Yasuo. So it was the only competitive games of Yasuo support inside of all of Amateur and Academy and things like that comes from this man. It's called the Rovex Gambit, and it's pretty hilarious. And that's who's stepping into the ADC role here for the side of Supernova.
But like, no one's gonna look, bro. Senna's like ADC is not a thing anymore. No one's playing that. It's there's just so many better options you can go for. Like, even if Varus is banned, where Tristana is, there's Ashe, there's Xayah, like there's Kalista, there's like even just Ziggs in general. Like you have Ezreal, even like just a lot more to pick from than Senna, in my opinion, who like hasn't been doing great in general for quite some time now, but. So I can't imagine we actually see that. It all remains to be seen though, because considering we have Rovex on, I'm open to any and all possibilities. This ref right now is an absolute wonderment to me.
Things get a little bit crazy because, again, now it opens up the possibility of, okay, can Rovex play traditional ADCs, or are we going to see more caster-type ADCs? Varus would fit that role if he plays a more lethality. That's probably as close to a mage you can get from a traditional marksman. Ziggs, obviously, is something that could be played potentially by Rovex. I have to think that that's got to be taken off the board by AOE, just to make sure he doesn't have that in the pool or something like that. And then you think, like, even if you go back to like Syndra, days of like Syndra bot lane where like that was a mage that people would go to, or anything of that sort, is that potentially on the table? And again, it just depends on Rovex's practice, specifically in the bottom lane role alongside Clyde. That combination is interesting, since now you have officially substituted in a new support for your team as a Proving Grounds, and now you're rocking a now triple flex to not mid lane, not support, but now into the AD role support that you've been running as the substitute for the majority of this play. At minimum, he is at least confident with the system, so that's something to keep your eye on. But now, Supernova sits up 1-0 in this series. If somehow they can find something, especially something cheesy, like what would be a Yasuo support to summon, it's not going to be that. I'm just saying, like, if they have something cheesy in their back pocket and they can take a little sucker punch at AoE, they can finish this quickly without having to worry about what's going to happen in Game 3.
And also now we also have to look at AoE, right? How would the response, any potential comeuppance that it would be facing, considering what could possibly come out. But across the board though, Dean, I don't think Supernova plans like changes a ton. Sure, we're in for some potential fun picks, like just to kind of throw curveballs like you mentioned, but at the end of the day, we're still looking at Maddie. We're still looking at Strongest, right? These are the two guys who've been the backbone of Supernova for quite some time. Maddie's been the player who carried like a lot of the early game in game number 1 up against AOE. Ran Strongest too, had a lot of solid roams, and Cozy as well. Really stepping up to the plate, getting top priority, and making sure they have at least 2 or 3 winning conditions up against AOE before they get to the 5v5s, which we know AOE Esports dominates in. And fight after fight, it still didn't necessarily matter. But I'm definitely still speculating here, though. Across the board, think we shouldn't see too much of a change considering what we have so far. I imagine they'll still prioritize very similar picks, considering that's likely what they're comfortable on.
It feels like now AoE also has this opening to potentially play towards the bottom side of the map, where like Sketch Dreams already was doing perfectly fine, if not just outperforming what was his opponent in Lynx on the Aphelios in pure team fighting stance. Obviously the Jin's not gonna be able to match the DPS output, but that's the idea. Sketch Dreams was intended to be the kind of primary carry for AOE Esports. Now that you've got a substitute in that position, it's bound to be weaker. It's very unlikely that's going to stay the same or even improve whatsoever. It should be a better place for AoE to find some early aggression on the map, especially because I don't know how much Clyde and Rovex have played together, since Rovex, again, he's a mid laner. Strumpus has held that role for a very long time, and the only other position Rovex has played is support, which is where, of course, Clyde is currently playing. So all things considered, it's unlikely those two have played much together in the bottom lane. This opens up AoE for some early aggression by saying we can shift into bottom side. That might be the play here from the side of AoE, and it might open them up to much easier early game that we've seen them have over the past 4 games of their last 2 series.
Considering as you go in onto this draft here for the second time, Supernova with a little bit of a wrench thrown into AoE's plans, possibly still keeping pace with similar bans, but the LeBlanc being taken out by AoE will at least not allow Supernova to pick that B1 though. I imagine they still prioritize very similar things to what we've seen. You know, like what was really good for them was that Trundle right beforehand, and they're just roaming around. Yep, there it is. There we go.
Nothing crazy about that one. Again, it was very good for Maddie in the previous game, so it's not shocking that they want to make sure that RBM's not going to be able to take that one away, secure it for themselves. Still flexible to some extent if Cozy really wants it, and I don't know if Clyde ends up playing it also, because that's a more likely flex for it. But again, Maddie played it so well, it would not shock me if they were just willing to take the Trundle at B1 because of how powerful it seemed to be for them in game in the first one.
Yeah, consider like we'll have to see if AoE actually opts into this Xinjiang match that they did before as well. I can't imagine RBM does, but I like that everybody is still paying the Yuumi respects over to Rovex too, which is a pick that, you know, I've seen him, I wouldn't say pop off on, but he picks him more often than not, which is already more than I can say enough about Yuumi. As of right now, that RBM's causes was left up, Dean. This is fun. This is okay. I'm excited.
It was left up first rotation, I believe, in the previous game as well, and banned out in second rotation when junglers started to be a little bit more of the focus. It is at least a little intriguing to me that RBM is going to be snagging this into Trundle, because Trundle is a good AD to AD duelist in terms of what brings, but RBM's been known for this a long time ago. He was just an insanely good Kha'Zix player. He took a break, came back, still good at Kha'Zix, able to punish a lot. And now gets the shot of potentially kind of eviscerating the map in some way. If they draft similar lanes to what we saw in the previous game for Supernova, immobility out of things like the Jhin, the Jace isn't the most mobile, doesn't have the greatest amount of disengage outside of that one Ian Hammer stance. Maybe this is the game that RBM puts his foot down and says, okay, it's my turn to pop off. I'm going to be the one that takes over in the early game.
Or would you say puts his claws down?
I would not say that.
Okay, thank you.
Why I did not say that.
That's perfectly fine. Looking over to the rest of the draft, though, it's on the other end, right? We saw that how Rovex, he was talking about the Ziggs pick as well. Then, yep, they managed to lock that in for him. So definitely a comfort for Rovex's side, be the mid laner that he is. And now Darkwing's left to respond, though. Yeah, definitely a potential flex pick from their end as he gets the 0 on Darkwings, though. So I know he's very comfortable on this. Ziggs actually wouldn't be a too bad matchup if they potentially tried to go for that.
And my thought process here is like, okay, if Strumpus is comfortable, they could take it into his ear. Rovex could also take it into his ear, and then Strumpus, comfortable at Cassiopeia, if they get a decent matchup in bottom lane, they could go Cassiopeia bot lane with Strumpus or something along those lines and actually take it into the Azir here. There is at least possibility for flexibility since Rovex has been kind of moved in from mid lane, there's the possibility of some flexibility with those champions, both in the role and also in terms of like what mages are played where, especially since you have Jace and Trundle, both of whom do good AD damage. As long as Cozy isn't kind of put dramatically on the back foot, you should have enough physical damage. You don't have to worry too much about doubling down into magic here.
Now, hear me out here, Dean. Now, as the bans continue to roll on through, the TK taken out, so more tank, for the side of AoE, so just to make sure that they don't have a super beefy front line, right, that Supernova can't possibly chunk through. I'm thinking we take it back a little bit, consider we have Rovex in, and another potential flex pick that could possibly be here is the Quirky. If you remember Corky Azir meta's days of yore, I know that considering all that Roves can do, I think it's definitely an option as the Lucian is taken out as well. I would expect to see a support bank coming out, a Supernova from there.
Oh, we want to get rid of Renekton instead. They want to pinch off as much as possible from Faisal, as that was the Tom Kench as well, just making sure that none of the comfort that he's really kind of found in terms of blind pickable top laners is available. And what this does is either A, they have to pick support here and give away what their bot lane is going to look like, or they have to give up their top laner, and that means that Cozy's going to be in a better matchup if they really want to try to flex around where Ziggs is going to go and where Jace is going to go, if Strumpus feels comfortable playing that. Seems like AoE wants to hold that top pick for Faisal. That's going to open up potentially for, what is it that you want to play? Do you want to put Ziggs into the bottom lane against the likes of the Leona Aphelios? Do you feel comfortable with that with Rovex? And if that's the case, what are you going to pair alongside of it with Glide? Galio, this was the preferred pick for it in the previous series. It does give double semi-global as well, where you're able to use the Mega Inferno Bomb as well as the ultimate from Galio to impact a lane very quickly from across the way. Anybody with even a small amount of CC could guarantee both the knockup and also the Mega Inferno Bomb's massive damage from the center.
Consider right now, it's we could. I did want to continue this whole trend of all these circles landing on one on top of another. And although usually picks that are things like the Camille alongside the Jarvan, I can't imagine those comes in right now. As I'm going to hold my breath, I'm going to stop and I'm going to wait because we know what. Okay, all right. This is officially a great gosh darn time because the Veigar into Azir match was fantastic for the Veigar. They saved the pick for that, and now suddenly you have an infinitely scaling mid laner. You got all these circles, a ton of magic damage, and now it rests up on Zyko here to pick what he wants for Faisal. As the Ornn could be fun, it gives them a lot of team fighting prowess, and all right. Dean, we got a comps locked in. I think we got a game on our hands.
I am actually in love with the Veigar pick here for a number of reasons. The biggest thing is if you look at all the champions from down from Faisal, not the Ornn. You have the jump that can be disrupted by the cage. You've got Azir who can be disrupted by the cage in any sense and has a good laning phase because of how scaling it can be. And then you've got Aphelios who can hit him from a fair distance, and you got Leona who also gets disrupted by the cage. In terms of range for your damage dealers, Aphelios and Azir should be able to hit the Veigar from decent enough distance, but in terms of engage, in terms of fighting from up close, not going to be the easiest job, even for Ornn, unless he uses that ultimate, which is perhaps the one best tool to try to get Azir or Leona or Kha'Zix on top of what it is the Veigar that is capable of doing. And the job of everybody else is Galio gets to stand in the way and say, okay, can I get onto or disrupt the likes of the Ornn? Can Cozy put out damage from a distance to prevent Dark Wings and Aphelios from just stepping up and bringing that down? Ziggs can do the same thing. You've got this siege engine of very far distance damage between Jace and Ziggs to compete against mid-range damage from Azir and Aphelios, and all of the stuff that could try to open up the space for the Azir and Aphelios gets countered by the likes of the Veigar and the Galio. This is a very mean Supernova draft to try to take advantage of. An area of effect, if they want to do it, have to do it quickly inside of this game. This is RBM who gets a chance to play his best champion, and this is a game where they desperately need him to be active very quickly.
And last time, though, we saw how quickly he's able to shut that down, but I can't imagine the same thing happens this game, right? Because an early Trundle trying to fight up against a Kha'Zix, although as big as you may feel, Kha'Zix still puts out a stupid amount of damage, especially at level 3, alongside the jump and those Whirlpool spikes. So things can get very dangerous very fast, but let's see what bounds to happen as we go into game numero 2. He's Supernova at AOE.
I love that he's rocking Death Blossom too. I am in love with this Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix has so many good skins. This is one of my favorites. It was underappreciated in its day. Got warded on even because Maddie is such a fan of RBM's Kha'Zix and his selection of Kha'Zix skins. Ended up actually catching him inside of that brush. That ward honestly isn't that valuable. Usually you want to put that a little bit further up to try to check when the Raptors are going to get taken, but right there spotting out where the Kha'Zix was is pretty much all you get from that. You do get to see the starting item, but that's about it.
Speaking of skins, by the way, this is the least interesting Veigar skin, in my opinion. This is like Supreme, like Villain Veigar or whatever. It does nothing. It's just a little top hat and a staff that changes 0 animations. So I wanted to see maybe just like Fairy Horn Veigar or Battle Boss Veigar, but I will stick with this. But Like you were mentioning, it doesn't change much for RBM. He still starts up on the top side though. Like bot side, they will try to kind of signal that maybe that he could be getting a potential leash, but nothing super impactful either from either one of these two teams. Standard starts across the board.
Taking a look across the board, it is Kha'Zix who's going to be starting leashless, which is perfectly fine. Kha'Zix has enough damage to start leashless. It's going to be a leash for the likes of the Trundle. I do wonder if we're going to see some similar pathing come out from Maddie. I doubt we're going to get a second level 2 in a row against the likes of the Ornn, but it would be pretty mean to Faisal at least if that's going to be the case. He is immediately walking in. I was watching the path. Is he actually going to do this a second time? Is he really going to gank top lane twice in a row, level 2, red immediately to top? Okay, he turned around. Hey, look, he was beelining for that Ornn, and we saw it in the previous game, but man, he does kind of bail on that idea really quickly.
I have to imagine that Cozy likely called it off, saying like, like he's already hit level 2, and wouldn't just have the same effect, because you can't exactly force an Ornn off the wave like you can to Camille, right? Especially with the early damage coming out from the Jace, considering how big Ornn is. And we saw before in a previous series, like just how much Gamsu, in fact, was able to just absorb pressure on his Ornn pick. So I imagine Faisal is aiming to do the exact same thing as Maddie. He used to farm away junglers on the opposite sides of the map, but see right now there is a push coming in from Sketch Streams and Zyko. I don't know, but makes sense. We know that like Ziggs and Galio aren't exactly the greatest lane pushers early on.
I'm trying to get an idea of where RBM is going to attempt to path to. I would like to see him try to put pressure onto Veigar just so Strumpus doesn't get effectively a free laning phase into the likes of the Azir. But the problem is, Trundle Pillar is a very mean thing to try to deal with in the exact same fashion. You can set up for a Veigar cage relatively easily, and if he is there at the same time, again, the early pressure that like the Veigar and the Trundle put together against the likes of the Kha'Zix is at least something to be afraid of. And so finding your first strike on the map as RBM feels like it comes down to tracking where it is the enemy is, or figuring out where it is that Maddie's going to be at any given point. That's what I'm watching for first, is like, can they actually get vision of this Trundle, or can they take advantage of where this Trundle is expected to be? They found him on his red buff earlier, I believe, when they saw that ward actually having come through, and that's why you can see, like, in terms of like how quickly things have gone about, maybe they saw him somewhere else, but it seems like RBM is just exploring to see what jungle camps were left up, as he had cut past all of his bottom side just to go up and potentially gank Faisal. And he's not able to take anything too much on his bottom side, which is what's going over into the pockets of RBM right now.
As baddies as well as here, just out here on the top side, they're just paying a little visit to Faisal, looking to just push the wave and likely and like probably crash it. But Faisal is still an Ornn, he's still level 4, and that knockup and just getting those Biddle stacks can be definitely deadly. And Cozy, no mana, just walks away immediately after that. Will probably just get his Raptors. But like we were saying before, Dean, right? If we're looking at RBM right now, we needed him to be carry this game. We needed to see him have some sort of impact in the first 15 minutes. He needs to accelerate the pace of the game for Area of Effect Esports, or else they're just going to be left at the mercy of Supernova scaling composition. They
will. I want to keep track of like the Veigar stacks as well, because that's at least something to always pay attention to when we have these stacking champions, is just how much AP that Strumpus is going to be able to grab once the time comes across the board. Already sitting at 23. Again, this is a number to keep track of over the course of the game. Because again, when that AP really starts to shoot up, and you've got some numbers that get into like the hundreds, all of a sudden these like W's, these Q's will be doing like hundreds, thousands of damage to the likes of Dark Wings of RBM when he tries to jump in, of Sketch Streams when they attempt to make an approach to put damage down, and that's the real fear that you've got. It's just like, if you've got enough burst on your Veigar, you can kind of match what it is that RPM's going to attempt to do if you let him get into that territory, especially with no magic resistance.
I feel like one-shot territory is something that we have to be afraid of for a lot of the picks in Supernova, right? For Cozy especially, for Strumpus, of course, like you said, and for Rovix as well. Because all these guys can scale really well. And if we're looking at Cozy for the previous game, a lot of those pulse blasts too, he's chonking the hell on the side of AoE. So if Faisal isn't there to block it, like Rovex alongside Clyde, all those small little circles can just immediately blow up at the entire backline of AoE. As Dragon is taken over by RBM, makes sense. They have the bot side push, right? And even with Dark Wings matching, because considering right now they're doing okay. They have the pushes in all these waves. They could look for a potential collapse here, but I can't imagine they do.
Yeah, they have RBM, and they actually had spotted out where it was that Zyko was, and so they don't fancy their chances too heavily there once the cage had been brought down. Instead, just at the defensive Maddie's Raptors. Already a step in the right direction. While RBM hasn't been able to find his way into a lane, taking that first dragon was a big aspect as to how it was that they could counteract C9. There is more scrappiness around this red buff. We might see a lot of members show up here. Here comes Aphelios as well. They might just have to seed this over on the side of Supernova.
They immediately just go in to lock out onto one, but there's a massive cage. That's US First Blood all the way onto RBM, though, but Emperor's Divide was a couple of them off for now. Nice knock up on the back, and he can trade 1-for-1. Visor goes huge so far, locking down Strongfest, but he has no backup. That's a double kill for Sketch Streams, and Stream double by double on both sides, though. Rovex has to run away, but even for AOE Supernova.
Ends up being 2 kills going on to the Vigard to begin this game in exchange for 2 kills going on to the Aphelios to start this game off, as both of the primary carries here for both teams end up with a bunch of gold in their pockets, all off the back of a red buff invade. But again, AoE, they are oftentimes willing and capable of taking fights in big 5-on-5s consistently, and so they're saying, okay, we're willing to start that. RBM got annihilated to start this fight, which was tragic, because again, one isolated member in this whole fight could go very easily against that. Strumpus gets pushed out the top side of the fight, so he can't deny much of some of the carries being able to walk forward and things like that. What a wonderful W from Rovex as well, disengaging. Yeah. He was in some terrible position right there, but thankfully ended up being the 2-for-2 as both targets on the top side of the fight get focused down by Vigar, as on the bottom side again, the Kazi got brought down pretty immediately inside of that, and that kind of helped out in the entire grand scheme of things. Gold now goes to the side of AoE, likely off the back of some of these CS numbers, some of the everything else that comes about. As Supernova pulled off, we're able to grab this Rift Herald to try to generate some sort of numbers advantage. With the Ziggs on the map, that is a pressing issue you have to be careful of, because you can execute a tower from 3 plates up, which is kind of insane.
I want to see this drop a bit. I want to see Strumpus released out of his Immortal Coil of the laning phase, and I want to see him roam around, especially down the bot lane. Considering how immobile Sketch Streams is, you want to be able to nip this Aphelios in the bud, because if he gets any more resources, if he's able to absorb more pressure, if he gets into those 5v5s, we saw how much of a menace he became. And that was after, like, not getting this double kill. So now, see the TP already coming in. They're looking to punch. The Supernova Clyde is almost dead. RBM able to get a nice jump down, knocks him out of tower range, and the Mega Inferno Bomb will do no much. That's 2 kills for AoE.
We talked about the fact that, again, when you've got this substitute, you've got Rovex and Clyde in the bottom lane, who are both 2, basically very fresh members in different roles across the map. We were able to not see, or like what it is. Ooh, actually, quite well played. Wow, they juggled aggro perfectly there to make sure Cozy could get that last auto without taking aggro on the opposite side. Good response play. I was about to say, the punishment from AoE into the more inexperienced members here on the side of Supernova is really good, but it seems like they're going to sack immediately 4 plates into the Jace, giving more gold to Cozy. This was the strategy of the previous game to get the Jace going, and what do you know? They are back on that game plan.
I like this a lot for them, because clearly they're fleshing out a single identity in terms of the compositions that they built out for themselves. We're talking about the identity for both AoE and for Supernova right now, right? We're leaning a lot towards Batty, as you do have this replay here on the bot side.
You see 3 immediately. They've got kind of this like surrounding board. The TP onto the cannon was insane, but the Moonlight Vigil set that up so easily for Clyde. Nice little jump in from RBM. He was able to get the smite outside of tower range, so wasn't going to take tower aggro. And then Rovex, I mean, he has nothing to do. Darkwing was on top of him basically from minute 1, able to shove him the opposite direction. Did have the, or at least wasn't able to use the flash in time. I'm not sure if it was an up on cooldown or whether it was up off cooldown and he just wasn't able to use it fast enough. But either way, again, the AoE play and the aggression we've seen from them to start is a very nice, refreshing kind of change to what we've seen over the last couple of games during the course of proving rounds. Nice response from Supernova to respond with that golden kind on top side, at least.
Center right now, where you see RBM getting back in the same position we saw him before.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, yeah, he knows like exactly where Maddie is, and mentioned the need to keep track of him to allow RBM to just flourish across the entire map, or blossom even. But fortunately, they've been able to do so. So with him tracking all the way as he's down on his Krugs, can just easily take this dragon. AOE roams on up, and so right now, like RBM, although like he's 1-1 and 2, he's not the carry that he was supposedly thought to be, but he is getting there eventually with all the resources.
He's doing great right now. In the previous game, Maddie had like 5 kills at this point, or 5 kill participation, 4 kills in the likes of the Trundle. It was difficult to interact with him. There was much fun to be had from the side of RBM on his Xin Zhao. In this one, looking comfortable, forcing plays in a couple of different positions, able to have some positive impact. The biggest thing, again, I also want to just like reiterate the fact that when you have like early Drakes and things, even if AoE wants to play for the later stages of the game, this is enough to stall the game out 10 more minutes, buy you more time for sketch streams. Even if sketch streams didn't have 3 kills, these 2 dragons buy you the time necessary to get your carries into the right position, get your Ornn into the right position, to get the Ornn upgraded item so that your team fight is a lot meaner than it would normally start on. It's the reason why like Faisal getting solo experience, things like that is going to be important. But these early Drakes, even if they don't lead to a soul immediately on 4 dragons, is really valuable for AoE and their strategy of trying to keep.
Oh, they just locked one down here, Dean. One after another. They go trade 1 for 1. Nice bomb. Coming out for Rovex, so at least they get a trade kill and a bit more gold into the Ziggs that could get also very scary.
Yeah, that is the Ziggs that has now taken top tower and got a kill right there, and they're going to force down mid tower because there's no one here to defend it right now. Aphelios is on bottom side, Ornn is in top, shoving in that wave. All they have to do is burn through the 1 plate here after this one goes down, and that's just going to be the Ziggs bomb that's capable of getting it. They can't do it on this wave. That's unfortunate because RPM's going to come back up. And Ornn is also going to be able to respond from the top river. So, best case scenario, they just shove in this wave, force RBM to catch it. It's a little bit of CS denied, potentially the Dark Wings, but that's about all you get. Still, tower plates, tower plates. You're taking gold all day. As solely over the course of everything, even after some of the dives that had happened on bottom side, it's still about a 300 gold lead. Games back and forth a little bit in terms of gold as they keep trading plays back and forth. AoE's big advantage, however, is both the combination of the 2 dragons, as well as this very powerful Aphelios to team fight around.
Exactly, yeah, and especially if you're looking at our Dark Wings right now here too, like you're mentioning, he's able to push this wave out as well, and he can also become that just a stupid amount of DPS just because he's on the back line. We even saw in the bot side play, although he was able to scale up, he still puts out a ton of damage, and both these guys want to be able to scale, but knockup landed all the way onto Cozy, and there's another kill in the pockets of RBM.
It is a mean thing. Ever since the Yumu's changes, I have loved like the Yumu's on the likes of some of the like Kazakhs especially, just because of how much it gives you, both between ability haste, lethality, AD, and then the movement speed buff that it provides to you. It is such a good item to just rush as fast as possible. I'm not saying that Mythics aren't insanely strong and that that's not going to end up getting brought in, but lethality, especially with this Yumu's being the way it is right now, is such a good item, and it allows such fast rotation from RBM. Even if a ward is in the river, able to catch out where he was, where it didn't in that case, that Yumu's gives you enough movement speed to close that gap when Faisal's the one using that ultimate to be able to set up that play. That top side also, this is another wave pushed in for Faisal that's going to be even, and they're going to be able to capture top river, so Rift Herald's going to go into their pocket as well. More gold and denial of another Rift Herald with Ziggs bomb potential to take out another.
Yeah, Lace just or these just plates not exactly going down right for this side. AoE is nice still, but considering they at least able to respond back for this one, he doesn't get his bomb off, so the tower doesn't go down. His Cozy's here as well. Okay, this is a little bit of a precarious situation for both of these teams. As AoE just trying to deny this tower take. Rift Herald in their hand, but there's only so much they can do to continue to try to push down their lead.
Yeah, forcing around the map with the Ziggs as fast as possible, pulling off as many towers as they can, just making sure to get all this outer ring and all this free gold that they have in their back pocket into these players, into this as quickly as possible. This is a team, again, that, like, even if AoE is able to get to a proper team fighting phase of the game where you get pure 5-on-5, it's still not going to be guaranteed unless you do hit a fantastic Ornn ultimate and are able to set up before that cage comes down and denies access for some of these melee champions, or even the Azir who's trying to slide in. There's that to consider. AoE is keeping up in terms of gold and pressure, though. This is one of the better early games we see them have at this tournament, and a lot of it off the back of RBM on this comfort. The Kazakhs isn't something we see him get his hands on very often. He is now in some very dire straits against this. Oh my god! Oh, he missed the kill!
Okay,
wow,
doesn't land. Double doesn't land either. That could have been a kill for either one of these carries from that side, but they both walk away though. But Going back a bit onto RBM here though, Dean, right? He's 3-1-2 right now. He's been able to get like rack up a fair amount of these kills. Suddenly, as we head toward the 50-minute mark, they're not able to execute on this strategy for the sole point. His AoE is here, so is Supernova. Want to possibly look for a point. RBM standing up, but they get Max catches back. Max to catch down Ziggs. He flashes over the wall. Standing, but he's disengaged on both ends. No real engage on either side. They have the Ornhorn not up, but Dragon is definitely the target.
I must say, right here, that was actually super good for Supernova. They burnt the Ornn ultimates, and they bought time here for the Vygar to actually show up. That was really good. Supernova burning that big kind of team fighting setup here for the likes of AoE, and that lets them get this river pressure back. Yes, they don't have mid push. They're going to sack some minions in the mid wave, but they're okay. They want to wrestle away this Drake. They don't want to give AoE that win condition of the Dragon Soul here. Without that ultimate from the likes of Faisal, maybe they actually have an opening. Sketch Stream's got hit the shot class. He lost a good amount of his health right there.
A real flanks to come about. The Darkwing still on the backside. Has the Emperor's Divide. Could really split this fight in this game in half right now, but Cage goes down. So AoE knows that this is their time. Just have a little opening. They're going to go in here. There we go. Second goes on the backside. Dragon is now there. Stu Buck. 1-for-1 traded. So I have to trade them to take anything. Darkwing goes down too. Now Supernova wants to fight suddenly. They could chase them down, but AoE is already out.
Not a perfect situation here from Supernova. Not everything that they would have wanted. Yes, they should be able to push down maybe mid in here tower just off the back of having everybody around and that Ziggs bomb to be able to convert this, and that will be valuable. But setting this AoE squad onto Dragon Soul has given them so much time to set up their team fight, set up their possibility for the 5-on-5, and maybe that is at least something to consider into the later stages. It opens up also the soul condition for them to potentially take this game as well. There is a lot here that AoE gets to control, and while Supernova comp, I still have a lot of faith inside of it. They've given up so much to the likes of this Kha'Zix in the early game. 2 kills and that mid-inner just don't feel worth it to me with the amount of pressure and leverage that AoE just gained off that Dragon.
Yeah, and sure, you want to be able to unlock Strumpets more. You want him to have like that from a pushing lane, so that way he can at least continue to roam across the entire map and just pick up EXP and far wherever he goes. But like you said, right now, suddenly Supernova had locked themselves into what essentially is a crucifix. They have to respond to this next dragon because Ocean Drake right now for AoE would prove very beneficial. Clyde is, he's just gone. Bye.
It's tragic. We're getting into a point in this game where, like, I'm excited to see both the Vygar and the Kha'Zix because both of them just blow people up as much as possible. Rovex is a terrible situation here.
Maddie caught up back and beautiful Emperor's Divide. As that's 2 more going over to RBM. The Castle Sharpers on the back end too as you get this mid tier 1 and likely the tier 2. Sharpest solo left alive to just try to defend. What's out there for opening up the base, but AoE have the game very much in control.
They do. Right there, they're able to find a broken fight. This is a very rare situation where AoE almost has to play their team fights in a very unique way. They don't get to play that kind of front-to-back 5-on-5 that they're accustomed to. But here, they're showing their proficiency for playing a variety of different team fights. Nice Rift Herald drop into killing off Clyde. That is a member that is both CC and frontline for your team, as well as being a little bit more zoning power with that ultimate. Once that's down, there's not much really preventing anyone from walking in. I love this as well. Faisal's ultimate, once the Rift Herald is tanking the tower to put pressure onto Rovex, Maddie tries to come over and help him, but Darkwings gets an ultimate to push these two into the team. This is the whole point of having the Vygar, is to prevent things like this from happening. But they're so quick on the draw that unfortunately Strumpus just isn't there to help respond to anything. There is no one here. There's no reinforcements for the members that are sitting underneath this tower. It allows AoE to force very far in their issue and allow their setup to actually work.
And this has happened twice now. Even in the previous fight, you saw how they caught out Rovex with the flash over the wall, but at least he stalled long enough that time to allow Strumpus to get in. But Rovex now with his flash stuff coming back up, although he was not the primary target, like Strumpus is not being there. He's being a little bit slow. Like is now we see he has picked up, a little bit more movement speed in his back pocket, to be able to get the fights a little bit faster and be able to move around back and forth. That was a nice little chunk. But looking at Supernova though, they don't want to be in these situations. AoE being so proficient at team fighting, like they can extend their lead more and more like this. And RBN right now is fully online. He is 3-1-2. He is probably gonna get his second lethality at him very, very soon. And everybody is in danger. Rovex and Strumpus especially, like I would be scared if I was them.
I will say Supernova just need to kind of keep together as a squad as much as possible with all 5 members being there. I think that's pretty much the only way they're capable of, like, keeping any relevance, mostly because it denies RBM. It allows the CC from a couple of members to really kind of protect those who need to put damage into backline. They can focus targets a little bit better. When their fight breaks into pieces and players are kind of split apart, the coverage of like what you talked about with circles, it's very basic, but like if you've got coverage of the circles not overlapping one another, it gives you less space to work with overall, because if you're split into 5 different pieces, most of the time you're running from either the Kha'Zix or the Aphelios, and even Darkwings has enough damage to really kind of make you threaten, and the Ornn ultimate splits that in half very easily, and so Supernova have to find a way to keep all 5 members together without getting engaged on by Faisal's ultimate. If they can do so, then it's very difficult for AOE to find this engage. They get to kind of actually play the game if they stay together like this.
I almost want to imagine it's like the Olympic symbol, right? With all the circles coming together. And if you have 5 circles on a team competition, they can converge on one another. You just get the Olympics. But although they don't have it, they only have 2 out of the 5 rings. They still are executing quite well. Speaking of execution, though, Dragon right now up in the next 5 seconds. Supernova know they cannot give this up. They have to be here for this. So the choosing to stick around, set up. I want to that's a catch. I want to immediately. It just goes so fast, Dean. One look down, already get another. Supernova though coming on top of the fight so far, back and forth. But watching with 2 more down, they thought they had it, but they just don't. RBM still going in. Strong pass. No, not even chuck him down. And he gets cleaned up as well. Cozy too. Don't have to run away. He puts out the cannon and tries to go for one more smash. But instead, he's the one who gets smashed down. And Soul is there. The game, it realistically is theirs, Dean.
It is. I gotta give a ton of props over to the side of AoE's engagement, because again, Faisal and Zyko in the midst of a Galio, in the midst of a Vigar, in the midst of Trundle Pillar, are somehow able to find engage after engage after engage in this team that should be difficult to do this with. When you've got the siege of like a Ziggs and you've got the siege of a Jace, it should be pretty enough to throw damage into a team, especially with that much zoning power, but man, AoE has somehow been able to get that engage into these players and force them into kind of precarious situations where they're not able to get their team fight all together. Now, Supernova's forcing here to try to pull some Baron off. I don't think they're going to be able to bring anybody down.
It looks a little bit tough for them right now, yeah, like definitely so, as they're all trying to just run away, but considering, yeah, they're expending a lot of the TPs to back and forth. Clyde doesn't get the taunt either. Strongest gets choked down. Sketchy just 2v1ing on the backside as the hero's entrance in, but unfortunately there's a hero to be found. Bodine, they need a hero, but they will not find one in this team fight as they get out with Baron.
They do. Easy enough, and this was opted for by the side of Supernova. Zyko not going to get brought down either. This is so hard of a game now for the side of Supernova to play. AOE has been able to break them to pieces a number of times, proving that they understand how to break this Supernova kind of line and make sure they don't get to play this like draw the trench and then use like your artillery to just hit the side of AOE. And even if they do get that set up, they've got Ocean Soul to regenerate themselves. They got an insanely powerful Aphelios and an insanely powerful Kha'Zix to come back. You've got Azir who's been able to come back inside of this game. There are not a lot of weapons that Supernova hold that are not capable of being counteracted now that AoE have all these resources, 6k gold lead and the Ocean Soul to work with.
They can just continue to not push their lead across the entire map, although not all side lanes in their favor. It's gonna go down mid, because right now they're strong enough very much to do that. Not every single team fight ultimate is up currently, but it's just denying every single resource on the side of Supernova, who are essentially just left at the mercy of whatever RBM and Darkwings are essentially just going to do to them. But as they can push down mid lane right here, Dean, they're knocking at the door of their base as they set up this kind of 4-1-4-2.
This is AoE not wanting to go out right here and right now. They had a rough series against C9 AM that were a large number of games that went a very long distance, most of them over 35 minutes, even in the 50-minute range for handful. They don't want to lose now.
One after another, they put out a couple of ultimates. Although it doesn't result in a kill, it does result in a tower dying on the side of Supernova, but they don't manage to push in the inhibitor either, as Darkwing still pushing in that bot side. Supernova being attacked on a couple of different fronts, but AoE is not stopping, Dean.
They are not, and they don't really have to. I will say, if there were going to be a moment in which Supernova could try to find something, this might be the moment, only because Faisal's ultimate is down, and that is one of the biggest tools that they have to really force onto this Supernova squad from a distance and break them apart by having people separate in two directions or just tank that engage altogether. But unfortunately, they just can't. They can't push out of their base. They're a little bit gun shy here, like, understandably being down 8,000 gold and the Ocean Soul. You don't want to give it up unless you have an absolutely picture-perfect fight, but a picture-perfect fight almost certainly includes Faisal's ultimate being down.
And dude, I've seen this picture before. I've seen what ADCs can do right here, and immediately a beautiful Moonlight Vigil. We're locked down 2, and Strumpus is gone. Heroic entrance will not save anybody at all, as AOE and 4v5 are looking to force down Supernova's base. A lot of chunks coming out from both ends. The Emperor's Divide and the Shuffle will put Rovex back into the deck. As they get another tower, they will get the inhibitor too. AOE still 5 people strong, as they're going to force down the base. Supernova has to make the final stand right here. With only 3 people, they can't do anything. They get the taunt off as well. Yet there's a big knockup. Maddie at the backside gets shot down. Just so much damage from this Azir, and AOE staying alive in game 2.
They are taking us to game number 3 now against the side of Supernova. I am happy to say that that is the case, because we get our first best of 3 that went to 3 games of the last 5 series we played here. In our 6th one, finally we get something where AOE, they looked so much more confident. Kha'Zix, very, very big for the side of RBM. Let him kind of take over the game. Sketch, I think, also, importantly, getting that early game lead was enough for him to be able to pressure off Strumpus when he stepped up to put up cages, to try to put out damage and things into this team when they were setting up for sieges. And it's what allowed them to blow up Strumpus a couple of times towards the end of that game. Big stuff for AOE, being able to find rough team fights to have to deal with, still able to capitalize on that kind of AOE name, being able to team fight top to bottom every single time they want to look to force that. It is the best part of their game, and right there, that shows us why they were able to qualify. Now, we are in a best of 1 to see which of these teams gets to continue on.
They shut down the win con for Supernova, they shut down the players, and they shut down the scaling to finding angle after angle, like you said. But I only got one more word to end it off here, Dean. BO3. See you back in a bit.